My boyfriend Aaron and I had been seeing each other for about 2.5 years when we came up with a really great idea for a buddy tattoo. And if you don't know what buddy tattoos are, it's when two or more people go to the tattoo shop and you get the same thing or things that go together. And it's kind of like the grown-up version of, those best friends heart-shaped necklaces you have in middle school and you each wear half. It's like that, but like way more permanent. Um, so I told a story at Lancaster Story Slam a few years ago about how Aaron and I had come to start dating. We had been acquaintances for about 10 years and ran into each other at a high school production of Peter Pan that my son was in and started dating from there. And so since Peter Pan was part of our origin story, this bright idea for buddy tattoos was for him to get a thimble and me to get an acorn. Those are the gifts that Peter and Wendy give each other when they meet. And that was the idea. We had pretty busy schedules. So did my friend Joe, who does all my tattoos. So we had to schedule the appointment really far in advance. We scheduled it for September. And a few days beforehand, Aaron realized that the theater tickets that his parents had gotten him for the previous Christmas were for the same night as the appointment. So I was disappointed, but we had made that appointment really far in advance. So I kept the appointment. I went and got something else tattooed on me. He went to the theater, and then we talked about rescheduling the buddy tattoos for a while, but we never really got around to it. And then in January, I was at Lancaster Story Slam, and the theme was new beginnings. And so I told the story about how Aaron and I had met up at this Peter Pan production and started dating. That was on a Tuesday. And then that following weekend, we broke up. And it was an amicable split. I knew we would stay really close friends, but it was also a reminder that I can't count on anyone to stick with me other than myself. So I decided I still wanted to get an Aaron related tattoo to kind of commemorate that relationship, which had been really good, but also that takeaway lesson. And I was having a hard time. I talked to Joe, the tattoo guy, and asked him to design something that would include both the acorn and the thimble. And a number of other really specific things. But also a lot of my tattoos have banners with words in them. So I told Joe I wanted this banner in it, but I wasn't sure what I wanted it to say because everything I came up with wasn't really succinct enough to fit into a banner and a tattoo that the whole thing was only going to be about the size of my hand. I think what I came up with first was make your own love, but that sounded too much like masturbation. So I scratched that pretty quickly. So what I told him to do was draw up the tattoo with all these specific parameters, put the banner in, but leave it blank. And I will make a decision about what I wanted to say by the time I get to the appointment, which was a few weeks out. So Aaron knew that I was still getting an Aaron themed tattoo. He knew when I was getting it. He didn't know what I was getting. I hadn't told him, he hadn't asked. So I showed up for the appointment, and what Joe had drawn up was beautiful. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. And he asked if I knew yet what I wanted in the banner. And I told him what I had come up with, what I had decided on. And he froze for a second, and then he put down his pencil and he sat back and he said, "Dude, that's brutal. Are you sure?" And in more than 20 years of doing my tattoos, he's never said that to me before. But I was really sure. I'd given it a lot of thought. I knew that's what I wanted. And the next thing was to figure out placement because I needed about this much space. And I wanted it near my heart, but mostly where my clothes cover. I'm already covered in tattoos. But we did find a space on my back, kind of behind my heart. And he did it, and I loved it. And then a few days later, I was at Central Market in York, and I unexpectedly ran into Aaron. And he came up, and he gave me a big hug. And I had a new tattoo that hadn't healed yet. It was only a few days old, so I flinched. And it wasn't so much that it hurt as much as I was startled by the fact that I had unwittingly put it in a place where when he hugs me, that's exactly where his hand falls. So it was even more perfect than I realized. It was about 1.5 years before he finally asked if he could see it. And I showed it to him, and when he saw it and he saw what it said, he cried. I'm not going to tell you what it says. Sorry. But I will say that in a world where relationships are often treated as if they're disposable, particularly romantic relationships, people burn bridges at the end of them. I'm really grateful that Aaron is still one of my best friends. I consider him family. I'm grateful that he's as permanent a part of my life as is possible in life, um, and also that I have those permanent reminders inked into my skin.